This is a recording of 19 questions about LSD for Bicycle Day by Trey Brasher. On April 19th, 1943, in Basel, Switzerland, chemist Albert Hofmann took the world's first trip on LSD. The compound, which he had invented 5 years earlier, would come to change the world. After taking the LSD, Hofmann began to feel sickly and decided to ride his bicycle home from his laboratory at Sandoz Pharmaceuticals. April 19th is now celebrated in the psychedelic community worldwide as Bicycle Day. Today being Bicycle Day, we wanted to take the opportunity to clear up some confusion in psychedelic culture surrounding LSD. Here we will tackle some of those questions and see if we can't straighten up the confusion. 1. Is LSD natural or synthetic? LSD is often considered a semi-synthetic drug because it is made from a natural precursor. This natural precursor is called ergotamine and is a dimer, two molecules linked together, derived from a fungus that grows on rye. This fungus, ergot or Claviceps purpurea, produces fruiting bodies like other mushrooms do. The fruiting bodies grow on a structure called a sclerotium, which are harvested, ground up, and extracted to get ergot alkaloids, nitrogen-containing compounds, one of which is ergotamine. This natural product, ergotamine, is then used as the first step in a chemical synthesis to make LSD, which itself is not known to be found in nature. Its close chemical relative, LSA, however, is found being produced by endophytic fungi living in species of morning glory and of Hawaiian baby woodrose. 2. It is often claimed that Albert Hofmann took a very large dose of LSD on April 19, 1943, the day known as Bicycle Day, the first time Hofmann purposefully ingested LSD. Is this true? No. He took a fairly common, although powerful dose by today's standards. Hofmann consumed 0.25 milligrams of LSD, or 250 micrograms, the equivalent of 2.5 standard blotter tabs. Please note blotter tabs are not standardized, and therefore it should not be assumed that any street LSD blotter contains 100 micrograms of LSD. This is further complicated by the fact that 100 micrograms of different LSD salts vary in potency by weight. Hofmann ingested 250 micrograms of LSD tartrate. 3. On the first Bicycle Day, Albert Hofmann took 250 micrograms of LSD tartrate. What is LSD tartrate? LSD tartrate is a salt of LSD. LSD is an alkaloid, a compound which contains a basic nitrogen. To balance out the charge, most alkaloidal drugs are made into a salt, which means an acid is added to neutralize the part of the molecule that is a base. In this case, the acid was tartaric acid. The version of LSD which is not a salt is called LSD freebase. 4. What is LSD-25? LSD-25 was the laboratory designation Albert Hofmann gave to LSD, since it was the 25th ergot alkaloid he synthesized. The 25 does not have any chemical meaning, and LSD and LSD-25 are the same. 5. Did Albert Hofmann actually bike home from the lab on that day, or did someone help him? He did actually ride his bike home unassisted, although he was accompanied by his laboratory assistant. 6. Does LSD make you clinically insane? It depends on what you mean by make. LSD itself has never been demonstrated to cause physiological damage. However, like many psychedelics and cannabinoids, it can precipitate a psychotic break in predisposed individuals. There are many examples of this, including most famously the CIA agent Frank Olson, who committed suicide by jumping from a window of a Manhattan hotel after being dosed with an unknown quantity of LSD without his knowledge or consent. If there is a history of psychosis in an individual's family, they should not take LSD. Notes: there is a number of case reports and papers that give good reason to believe that LSD can cause physiological damage in certain doses, and to certain people, although these cases are uncommon. There is some reason to believe that LSD can damage the optic nerve, although this is currently debatable. There are alternative theories that the CIA murdered Olson because he witnessed the illegal torture of a CIA detainee and then blamed LSD to cover up the murder. 7. Does LSD need to be stored in a freezer? Not necessarily. LSD is not particularly sensitive to heat, although it can volatilize, evaporate at high temperatures. It is, however, highly sensitive to moisture and light, so storage at room temperature in a dark, dry place is sufficient. No need to refrigerate. Chemistry explanation. LSD has 2 labile protons at carbon 5 and carbon 8, which can epimerize. Of the 4 optical isomers of LSD, only RR-LSD is considered LSD. The other 3 have other common names. And the compound will lose activity. Enamine reactivity at carbon 3, creating the inactive 3-chloro-LSD, and Michael acceptor functionality at carbon 8, creating the inactive LUMO-LSD. 8. Some scare stories claimed that LSD mixed with the lethal poison strychnine have been found on the street. Is this true? There's only one known account of a mixture of LSD and strychnine being found, and it is a spurious case itself. In 1972, in the journal Microgram, ironically named in this case, the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs reported red capsules containing this combination were recovered in upstate New York. The analysis of this material was never independently confirmed. 9. Why does some LSD feel different than other LSD? There is no simple answer. While synthesis impurities may play some role, there is no evidence to support this, and no reason to believe that anything contributes more than set and setting to variations in LSD experiences. Rarely, street LSD is adulterated with small quantities of other compounds, such as amphetamine or the N-Bohm series drugs, which would cause a change in perceived subjective effects. 10. Can LSD absorb through the skin? Yes, LSD is rapidly absorbed through the skin. Skin exposure to liquid or solid LSD without proper personal protective equipment will rapidly precipitate an LSD intoxication. This includes touching blotter paper. LSD should always be handled with extreme caution. 11. I've heard the terms fluff and needlepoint to describe types of LSD. Is there any truth to these terms? It is sometimes claimed in LSD culture that these terms relate to different parts of the LSD crystal. There is currently no evidence to support the claim that the ends versus the body of the LSD crystal produce different effects, and no reason to think chemists could or do separate out these components. The difference is likely explained purely by the expectancy effect. Once a person thinks that a certain LSD blotter is fluff or needlepoint, they are likely to experience what they expect that type of LSD to cause. 12. Why is LSD so potent? This question has baffled scientists for decades. The answer was finally discovered by the legendary psychedelic chemist David Nichols in 2018. The ethyl amide part of the molecule hooks into a part of the serotonin 2A receptor, closing a molecular lid over the molecule, and causing the LSD to remain bound to the receptor, and therefore the person to trip, for an extended period of time despite rapid clearance of the drug by the human body. 13. If LSD stands for lysergic acid diethylamide, why is the drug called LSD instead of LAD? Albert Hofmann was Swiss-German, spoke Swiss-German, and lived in Basel, Switzerland when he first synthesized LSD. The German word for acid is Säure, and therefore Hofmann named the compound lysergic sour diethylamide, or LSD. There is a compound closely related to LSD, also invented by Albert Hofmann, called LAD52, or allyl LSD, which takes the English acronym. 14. I have heard no one has ever died from LSD. Is this true? A death caused directly from the physiological toxicity of LSD has never been recorded in humans. However, Many people have died or killed themselves indirectly from various behaviors while high on LSD, often called behavioral toxicity. Behavioral toxicity is very common with other drugs, however, and does not make LSD particularly unique in this respect, with alcohol being the best example. 15. Why, if LSD was first synthesized by Albert Hofmann in 1938, did it take until 1943 for him to try it? There are several reasons, the first of which being the start of World War II, with Germany's invasion of Poland in 1939. While Switzerland remained neutral, supply chain disruptions forced rationing in Switzerland. In addition, Hoffman's first tests with LSD-25 appears to show no useful pharmacological activity. 16. Is LSD hard to make? LSD is significantly more difficult to synthesize than other common illicit drugs, which require chemistry to make, such as DMT, methamphetamine, and MDMA. Not only is ergotamine tartrate exceedingly difficult to acquire, whether by purchase, it is heavily controlled, or by extraction from ergot, LSD is extremely sensitive to light and moisture, and for these reasons the pure product is often difficult to obtain via synthesis. Newly invented peptide coupling reagents have made the synthesis easier, but these reagents are also expensive and difficult to acquire. 17. Did Steve Jobs actually take LSD? Yes. He is quoted in his memoir as saying, "Taking LSD was a profound experience, one of the most important things in my life." 18. What is the connection between the Grateful Dead and LSD? LSD is integrally linked to the history of the Grateful Dead. The band became popular as the musical accompaniment to parties thrown by the famed American author Ken Kesey. These parties are acid tests, as Kesey and his circle, the Merry Pranksters, dubbed them, were thrown in warehouses or the beach in Laguna, California. The pranksters provided libations dosed with large quantities of LSD for free, and the entire party would trip and listen to the Grateful Dead. The sound engineer for the Dead, Augustus Stanley Owsley, was also an LSD chemist who made the LSD for the acid tests. He also drew the famous Grateful Dead symbols, the Steely and the Dancing Bears. The Steely features a lightning bolt with 25 angles inside a skull, meant to represent LSD-25 inside a person's head. The name Steely is short for steal your face, a phrase used to describe tripping on LSD. Owsley's nickname was the Bear, which may have contributed to the symbology of the dancing bears, who represent people dancing while high on LSD. 19. Is LSD an acid? No, it's actually a base. The word acid in the name lysergic acid diethylamide is because LSD is a derivative of lysergic acid, which is actually an acid. If you still have any other questions about LSD, feel free to send us a message and we will do our best to answer them. LSD has a complex history that continues to be written, and it seems all but certain that Bicycle Day will continue to be celebrated far into the future. Please be careful and celebrate Bicycle Day responsibly. At Unlimited Sciences, we feel some of the most valuable scientific data regarding psychedelics come from the naturalistic experiences of people who really use these substances. If you are able, please consider a donation to support the creation of our general registry, which will look at how people use LSD and many other psychedelics in a natural setting. This recording is provided to you by Unlimited Sciences. Article written and read by Trey Brasher.